evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Halloween special of Seddon and Lacey's Comic Stash. This evening we shall be doing evil things. We shall be reading 2 evil comics and watching some evil TV.
One evil TV. I had planned on, I just want to say, I had planned on putting some Halloween-esque effort in, but I didn't, so fuck it. I had the week off this week, so I did think I've got plenty of time. I'll put something together to make it more spooky. I mean, I guess I put the light of green in the background. That's a spooky colour, isn't it? But yeah, I had intended to do more, but this is what you get.
So, before we go into all the evil and terror and horror, should we go to a nice, happy, dingy corner?
Actually, yes, we're quite on brand with that, aren't we? The not necessarily the music choice that goes along with it, but my pictorial choice is definitely in the horror genre, isn't it? So.
Exactly. So, I'll go first because I'm not going to go too much into it because we will be covering it when the run's finished. And that is One Bad Day, Two-Face.
Two Faces.
Not as good as Riddler.
Well, and it's a shame to hear because you wasn't the biggest fan of Riddler either. And if you want to know our thoughts on One Bad Day Riddler, videos on the channel, I was going to put it up there because I know people link videos, but if I can figure it out, I'll do it, but probably not. So look on the channel.
Yeah, just click on the channel button down there and
watch all of them.
Yeah. Exactly, it's hours of entertainment. But yeah, no, this was weaker than that. I did pick up Penguin today.
Oh.
So I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I picked that up today. So that is for the reading. But as I said, when I do read it, I'll probably mention it again in a quick little bit on it. But as I said, we will be doing the run as a whole at the back end once it's all done.
We'll be doing Our Bad Day. Interestingly enough, I hadn't looked until now. I know we said earlier in the Riddler one about certain creative teams we were interested in, and I really had channeled in on the comic book writers that I like. But I've just had a look, and One Bad Day Penguin is written by John Ridley, isn't it? And I'm just Googling to make sure. John Ridley, movie writer. John Ridley, Boys in the Hood, I think. Sing a song. Vamp for me while I fact check that. But I'm sure he was Boys in the Hood.
Do you like to murder?
Maybe not. Three Kings though, which was a movie I quite liked. So yeah, I guess that's got me intrigued. Who am I thinking of? Who done Boys in the Hood?
I know Spike Lee directed it. I can't remember who wrote it.
No, he didn't.
Was it not Spike Lee?
No.
Or Spike Lee did all those films.
The writer and the director was the same person, I believe, and it was John Singleton. Who's dead. That's why I wondered when I saw John Ridley wrote this. I could have sworn the writer and director of Boys in the Hood had died recently. So I was thinking, wow, did he write this beforehand? But okay, John Ridley. My bad. But what a little deviation into. And P.S. I love Boys in the Hood. So if you've never seen that, watch Boys in the Hood. It's fantastic. Probably avoid most of the other movies John Singleton ever made after that because they weren't so good. But so yeah, so a movie I kind of get a bit interested when it's someone from outside of the medium coming in and doing stuff in the medium because I hope they're coming in because they love it and not just because they've been offered a fatter check than someone who does this monthly.
But yeah, it said I will report back once I've read it. But yeah, the third of the series is to the side of my settee at the moment because it fell off the arm of the chair earlier.
Jumped off.
Yeah.
Penguin suicide. That might be his bad day. That you might open it up and it's a story about how he fell off the side of a settee once.
Exactly.
The worst day he's ever had.
Art imitating life.
Yeah.
So, Sed, what have you been up to in your corner?
Well, mine's kind of horror-y, but off the back of Sandman, which again, this is turning into a horrific self-plugging exercise. Go and see our Sandman Volume 1 review and discussion. But it reminded me, it's something that's been on my list to do for a long while, but it reminded me how much I wanted to go back and read Hellblazer from,
Yeah.
and I say from issue 1, but I'm actually reading the original Sins trade paperback, which is the first volume, which also includes a couple of issues from the Alan Moore Swamp Thing run. So basically his introduction, then the start of the series. And I'm not going to go into it too much because I might do something on the channel specifically about this Hellblazer run, because it is blooming massive. Runs to about 300 issues ultimately, and there's a wide rotation of creative teams that come on and do different things with the character. But so far, so good. And I have read this before, and I always remember it feeling when I got to the end of Hellblazer of one of the weakest parts of it at the beginning. But I think because of our recent Sandman reread, I've gone back and I'm enjoying it more this time, because this is a bit more of the dirtier 1980s sun issues in the background, UK heavy period of Hellblazer. Whereas even though British writers are often the ones that are on it, it oft goes off into the more fantastical after this. But yeah, possibly more to come on Hellblazer, and if not, I will pick up and maybe talk about it a bit more in a reading corner later on, because I'm certainly going to go through all of the issues thanks to DC Universe Infinite, sponsors DC Universe Infinite.
Yes. So we shall start with our evil section.
Evil night, our Halloween night.
So, shall we start with
our history in horror, or our history in horror comics, should I say, not our history in horror? Yeah, I mean, how about you? I mean, if I was a betting man, I'd say, I mean, I know obviously your love of the Bat and all things the Bat, but I would guess that you might have kind of a horror tinge to it. You might have picked up on some horror stuff along the way.
Yeah, so I have done sort of horror stuff like Blade. After seeing the film, went into reading some Blade stuff because killing vampires, that's awesome.
Was it Blade stuff from around the time, or was it old school Blade stuff? Was it like 70s Blade, or was it stuff that was being published in the 90s?
It was sort of late 90s, early 2000s Blade. So
I've never gone back and read any of that 70s stuff, and I imagine it very much leans into like 70s horror movies, and 70s blaxploitation movies, and it's kind of on my list to get to, but yeah, it's a big long list, as you well know. So one day I might get that
there. Obviously read some like Vampirella and stuff.
Bad Girl stuff, as it really was known at the time, wasn't it? There was a big sort of Bad Girl craze of not just being like that horror lean, but certainly like the way they were drawn, and it was quite a movement in comics there for a good 5-6 years, wasn't it? And I think it's still out there now, but I think when Wizard magazine kind of stopped being the thing that it was, so stopped sort of pumping the covers with pictures of all these, I think potentially the sales figures dropped a little bit.
Yeah. Some sort of other weird and wonderful horror bits, a lot of single sort of story bits. I'm trying to think of what they are, what the names were of stuff, because it's so long ago. But I think it was like a Killer Clowns from Space sort of adaptation / sort of story off the film. There's some Hellraiser stuff that was not.
See, I feel like I've read some Hellraiser stuff along the way, because Marvel did some Clive Barker things somewhere along the line, but I don't remember it too well. If I did, it's in a crate somewhere at my mum's probably. I've maybe read it once.
Yeah, there was a few sort of like other film tie-ins. I remember reading an Alien sort of adaptation.
Yeah. I was big into when Dark Horse had their license and they had Alien and they had Predator and they did a fantastic Aliens versus Predator. My God, why the movie didn't follow that path? But I remember their adaptations quite fondly.
Yeah, but yeah, no, there are a fair few bits that I've read, but I find,
of course, more recently, The Crow as well, which
Yeah.
I would say like leans
Yes.
heavily into that arena, doesn't it?
Yeah, The Crow, from Now That I Have It.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm all for some gore and evil. Just don't think I just haven't sort of found more of it that has grabbed me straight away. But the thing is, obviously, you have your Batmans and stuff which have their moments.
Yeah.
And even like mainstream stuff like Avengers or Doctor Strange will have its.
Oh, and you could argue with Spidey, like including characters like Venom and Carnage was a lean into. Here we could get some kind of almost movie monster characters into our comic books.
But yeah, as I said, it's a genre that I've put my toes in, and enjoy, but I haven't deep dived because, as with most things, I've taken such a long period of out of it and now coming back in with everything else there is. It's like, you need to read this, you need to read this, you need to read this, look at this, shinies.
Yeah.
But it is finding the time to go back and find the bits, because a lot of the horror, most horror stuff isn't on Marvel or DC. A lot of it was done on like the independence labels and things like that, because even things like Spawn, as well, just isn't easily available.
I feel like probably the better stuff is on the indies, isn't it? And I mean like the widespread better stuff. I'm sure there's some classic stuff at Marvel and DC, but I feel like if you wanted something akin to the horror movies that probably we gravitate to, you are looking more at the independent comic scene for that. And as you say, not available, or available probably through things like Comixology, but at a price that maybe I don't always have the ability to pay, especially when I've got 300,000 ones already sitting on a digital device that I'm not reading. So that balance has to be there. I mean, it's always surprised me. I possibly so horror is one of my favorite movie genres, and it possibly sometimes is. The only thing that makes me reticent to that is because there's so much rubbish, but when it's brilliant, it's brilliant. And I guess in my head,
sometimes with horror, like even the bad shit is great.
But I think there's so much just bad because it is such a cost-effective way to make movies that can hit big. Film studios love it because they cost very little to make and they often make a lot of money back. So there's a big reward to risk. And I guess I kind of, for a long time, assumed that might be the same in comics. So I don't think I ran to horror comics because when I could watch a movie on telly, it's free. When I had to go down the comic shop and pay money for them, I wanted to feel like I was going to get quality back. Now, bearing in mind some of the stuff I know I own that I read over the years, which I wasn't liking, maybe I could have been. But I never massively gravitated towards seeking horror comics out, and that superhero comics is kind of my superhero world. But I mean, for me, I guess the big sort of tentpole moments for horror comics that I really did get invested in was The Walking Dead. That as soon as I started reading that, I knew I was in for the long haul. Strangely enough, in the Marvel world, Ghost Rider, and I do really want to go back and read it again because it was the one that was published in the 90s, and it was very action packed, very demony, very. It felt a bit like the sort of TV show you might get in the 90s. And I really don't know if it would hold up now, but I remember at the time absolutely loving it. And there was lots of mystery around who actually was Ghost Rider, and because it was a new character and why that person was it. That certainly grabbed me. And a lot of the other stuff would have been like Vertigo stuff, or stuff that become Vertigo. So
Yeah.
Swamp Thing, Sandman, I would argue, is in the horror genre. Hellblazer, like I mentioned earlier. So I think there's a lot of great stuff out there, but I would say that I don't spend a lot of time in it. I mean, you mentioned Doctor Strange. I think for the longest time, Doctor Strange was a horror comic more than anything else, or a Marvel horror comic. So it dealt in the world of dark magic and things like that, and never really grabbed me. Never really gravitated to it back then. And it was only really when he got a bit more integrated into the Marvel universe that I found him interesting. But yes, probably one of the things that does sort of shine out for me is those random kind of Halloween singular issues where all of a sudden Dracula will turn up, or a zombie will, or a mummy, or a ghost, or a werewolf. All of those things that we are probably more used to in the universal monster kind of tropes, coming into the comic books and doing things. And you know what, they were fun. I didn't mind the odd single issue story here and there, just to mix it up a little bit.
You're saying that you mentioned the Universal monsters. I do remember as a kid there being a Batman versus Wolfman one, and it was Universal Horror Wolfman, and it was like, yes,
yeah, the sort of character crossovers that I don't necessarily want week in, week out, month in, month out, but on the odd occasion,
once a year,
done very well.
Yeah.
And you know, like you said, licensed comics. As I say, there's some great alien stuff out there. I've never really dipped into the world. I imagine there are probably sort of Halloween, like the Michael Myers Halloween, and probably like Jason and Freddy ones.
I've not seen any slasher based stuff anywhere. Obviously, doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but it's not one that it's ever come anywhere that I've been able to see it. There was a run that I only recently found out about that I want to attempt to get somehow, but I think it's going to be in eBay and silly money because I don't think it's going to be anywhere else. That Rob Zombie did a run of like 8 issues based on characters from his films and songs, and I was like, I need to find this. That was about 10 years ago it came out, so yeah, trying to get them is going to be hard. But yeah, you would imagine that it is something that they could quite easily do. And like, even if you look at sort of games and stuff, like Resi Evil or Silent Hill, those sort of properties, they could quite easily do like a manga style stuff off those.
There's I will say, in my digital purchasing before we got the subscription services, and I do Comixology is fantastic, but also it's like Steam for video games, where Steam has a sale on every week, so you buy loads of games that are all of a sudden £1.50, and you just go, I'm never going to play them, so don't play the ones I own. And I do a lot of that, or I used to do a lot of that with Comixology before they moved to the new Apple, to the Amazon-based one. And Image Comics have done a load of stuff that is on my list to get to, that I own but I haven't read, that I feel lean into the horror trend. But one of the ones we talked about on a recent show, Ice Cream Man, you know, that for me, fantastic. I got a little way into, and it was you, and it was us just talking about like Freddy's and Jason's, of reading one that was a while ago, and I don't think it started at Image, but it's called Hack Slash, and it's about a lass who is like fighting slasher movie kind of people, and it was really good. And when we talk about it, I kind of go, oh god, there's all that stuff on the list that I need to get to. But yeah, I think there's probably an abundance of, certainly probably in the last 10 to 15 years, been an abundance of really good indie Image Comics led, especially horror stuff out there that I need to get round to reading. But and it feels very similar to the horror movie genre for me. You know, it has its peaks and troughs. Like normally a trend comes along, doesn't it, where something makes it big. We had, you know, the Halloweens, the Friday the 13th. Then it kind of went quiet after the market was saturated with those. Then you got like a resurgence at Scream. Then the market got saturated again. But I look at the last 10, 15 years of the movies and go, there's some amazing stuff being made out there. And I feel like comics has got that in it as well. I haven't dedicated enough time. And I think on my radar for what we're now, 2022, so 2023, I will make a concerted effort, I think, to catch up on some of the more horror style comics that are out there.
Yeah, I do think that there is definitely a lot of things that stink of me that I've just not got around to.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, sometimes it's not being exposed to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've talked on earlier shows about when you go in a comic shop, there are thousands of things in there, but probably what's thrust in your face is what's come out that week. So if you're not in there the week when something comes out, or it doesn't grab you at the time, so outside of that, to a large part, we've probably been reliant on things like going into like a Waterstones and seeing what they've got on the shelf, which a lot of the time it's going to be the license or something that's on TV at the time. Whereas this move into the digital services and things like that, I think it is really good at being able to put things in your eye line that maybe you wouldn't have seen otherwise. Of course, the downside of it is so much gets put into your eye line, you go, God, I'm going to have to stop doing anything else just to try and catch up.
So we will start with the earlier of the two reads. And from 1982, Superman, or what? No, DC Comics presents
yeah.
number 53.
Just very quickly before we go too far into it, and just coming off the back of what we said about how there's all this stuff out there to read that's got a horror vein. Look what we've picked. Strap yourselves in, everyone.
Superman and the House of Mystery.
This one did feel apt, didn't it? Because of the House of Mystery and its link to Sandman again, which we recently read. So this one felt like a bit of a no-brainer because it has the House of Mystery, as you will see, becomes more and more of a thing in Sandman, and eventually gets its own series, although had previously had one, but kind of a more modern retelling. But yeah, this one takes us back into the world of Cain and Abel, doesn't it?
Yeah. So this stinks of the 80s and early 80s.
You're right, but I'd actually argue it potentially stinks of the 50s and 60s a bit as well, doesn't it? This is a real kind of
schlocky,
old school vibe, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's very sort of horror. It's a bit Scooby-Doo.
Yes,
I think that's the way of putting it. It's very Scooby-Doo, this issue. So they are at there's a kid doing trick-or-treating dressed as Superman, who then
turns into Superman.
Yeah. Clark is at Lois's party,
dressed as Green Lantern, wasn't he?
Yeah, dressed as Green Lantern, as a Halloween fancy dress party. Some guys there dressed as Thor.
That's Jimmy Olsen. That's Superman's best mate, Jimmy Olsen. Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, he was known in the comic books,
but not Marvel Adonis Thor, just
old school Thor. Bit of fur on his costume, isn't he?
Old school Nordic Thor. He then becomes Thor and can shoot lightning bolts. Lois is kidnapped and
by faux. I said almost said Spider-Man, by faux Superman, because faux Superman believes she's in peril at this point.
Yeah, and then real Soup. Well, that's clearly not Superman because I'm Superman. And whilst dressed as Green Lantern, pretends to power up the Green Lantern ring to fly off.
I reckon the writer loved that bit. I reckon he went, "Wow, no one's thought of doing this before."
Yeah.
Possibly with good reason.
We then go to the House of Mystery, where Cain is telling horror stories to a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
And
I quite like this bit, by the way. I quite liked the idea of that, of like Cain just hanging out, telling ghost stories to a load of kids who want to hear ghost stories in his house of mystery. I thought that was quite apt.
And then, what? I don't know how you pronounce the guy's name.
I don't know how you pronounce it, but I've always pronounced it, and I'm going to give it a go here, Mister Mxyzptlk. But whether that's right or not, I don't know. But that's how I've always pronounced it. And I can't remember whether I've ever heard it said out loud in cartoons. I'm sure he must have been in the Superman animated. But yeah, Mister Mxyzptlk is how I would pronounce him.
Is there and basically turns the house into horrors with his kidnapping of Lois, because he is the mastermind of all of the evening's evils.
Have you had much experience with him as a character before?
I know of the character, but not in comic books, because isn't this based on or a similar style of character from somewhere else?
He's very much similar to that dude from the Flintstones, but I can't remember what his name was. The Great Kazoo, I think he was in that. But
yeah, as I say, it is really tropey of that sort of
because we're not
50s, 60s, 70s cartoons.
Superman big fans, are we? We've said this before, and I did wonder whether you had. I always got the impression with him that he's a bit of a Marmite character. I get the impression with a lot of people over the years, if they read a Superman comic and they turn a page and it's one of his, there'll be as many go, oh God, as there are go, oh, brilliant, he's back. And I must admit, I somewhat, on my limited experience, side on I like the ones that he's in, because I think it allows him to do funky different stuff with Superman than maybe what we're used to. I quite like it from that regard.
Yeah, this sort of horror trap house, I'm all for it. And it's, as I said, it is very Scooby-Doo. It is very that sort of era of kids TV and silliness. You know, weird.
Well, like all the kids get turned into like the things they're dressed up as, don't they? So the kids that were dressed as ghosts, they just had sheets on, they turn into ghosts, and like some turn into werewolves and skeletons and things like that. But it's all based off of the magic of the house and Mister Mxyzptlk. And there's a great scene, isn't there, early on where Superman gives one of them a bit of a bitch slap is how it looked like for me, and then realizes that it's a kid, but the kid's fine, which is good, I guess, because we wouldn't really want the DC Comics Present 53 horror comic to be remembered for that. Do you remember that time Superman killed a kid?
But it just gives that sort of that little bit of peril that he then realizes, oh shit, I can't bitch slap these ghosts and goblins.
Yeah, everything else that he experiences after that, he's a bit like, whoops, so you better find a different way to do this rather than just smacking
Is it a kid? The traps and this thing in the house I thought were great. The monster who also has a watch on so he can tell the time because he only has an hour to save Lois.
Yes.
The going through the door and the room being the wrong way round.
And he does a whole kind of explanation of how he orients himself so that he can walk upright, which made me think the writer's written this and the artist, Kurt Swan, a great artist, and I really did actually like the art in it as much as it's of its time. I really did like the art. But he obviously went, well, bollocks to that. I'm not writing all these. I'm not drawing all these like all over the shop. No, I'm going to draw them all the right way up, and you're going to write something that explains why they are the right way
up. And then obviously at the end it is all just a jest.
Yeah.
Because, it's Mxyzptlk.
Yeah.
And the only way that he can be banished back to whatever chaos realm that he comes from is to get him to say his name backwards. So Kane tricks him into doing so in the old Rumpelstiltskin way of doing it.
And as you said earlier, that really leans into kind of kids' TV at the time and fairy tales and things like that. But I mean, I guess as well for what was effectively a throwaway Halloween story or a horror story in a DC Comics Presents, it also allowed them to play with, because at one point he goes through a room, doesn't he, and he's in the Daily Planet, and like the world knows that he is Superman, because in this sort of kind of nightmare dreamland, he told the world that he was Superman, but he didn't tell Jimmy Olsen, and Jimmy Olsen's in a mood with him. So I think it probably is one of those ones where they just went, well, we've got a few pages here and there. Let's have a bit of fun with the Superman mythos and bits and bobs like that. Funnily enough, I didn't, as much as I really liked it. I didn't really see the need for Kane and the House of Mystery, which was a bit of a shame for me. I know they have a part to play in this, but it seems like such a small part, and this could have easily just been Mxyzptlk and Superman doing something, and it almost felt a bit like a wasted opportunity for that. But then I'm looking at it from the Sandman onward version of these, and I don't know whether this is the issue to have Dark Cain and Abel and that kind of world in it. And I guess it gave them a nice bit on the cover to say Superman in the House of Mystery, so they could probably sell more House of Mystery comics.
Yeah. For what it is a throwaway Halloween issue.
Yeah.
It's a fun read. I like it.
It's fun and of its time, isn't it? I think I would be really disappointed if I went out and bought one today that did a story this way and didn't maybe tighten it up a little bit. But with the context of it being the 80s that it was written, I think it's good. I think it's good enough, and it fit our theme, didn't it? It certainly leans into probably the sort of, I say horror, but the more I'd say Lost Boys, but not Lost Boys, but that kind of American younger, the stuff that I was probably watching in the late 80s, the Goonies kind of vibe to it, but with a horror bent to it. Also exposition heavy as well. I was just going to say as well, like it really is, and we'll find this. I think we'll find this when we go back and read a lot of the old stuff, is that that there wasn't a global energy crisis going on back then, and they had a load of ink to burn, so they were going to use it.
The only other bit in this, it does have a second story in there of the Atari Force, who are literally the Atari symbol, which I was like, what's going on there? I started reading it, but I didn't like it and binned it off about 6 pages in.
I didn't read it because I seem to remember, I think there is a comic for them as well. I think they have a run at a certain point. I don't know how many issues, but it was nothing that ever interested me, and it didn't interest me enough. It didn't feel like it sat with our theme for the show and even what else was going on in that issue. So
I read the first few pages here. So where's the horror? So what's going to happen? Is there going to be like weird space monsters or something? Nothing happened. I was like, well, fuck this.
Well, and I'd never. This is the first issue of DC Comics Presents I've ever read. And like having a kind of look at some of the issues around it very much feels like it was a Superman team-up book. So it would be Superman and another character or group of characters from the DC universe each month. It interested me enough to maybe consider having a look at some other issues along the way. But because there's so much to read and so much to catch up on, it probably will be down the line that I might pick up the odd issue here and there and have a look.
Yes, so that's what I brought to the comic table.
Yeah, you got DC, didn't you? So, and there was a few choices, wasn't there? And to be honest, like the few that you picked out, I'd have kind of happily gone with any of them. Whereas I was picking out of Marvel Unlimited, and there's, we said earlier, there's lots of sort of singular issue stories. There was a few that were limited series or sort of short runs, but we had kind of said single issue because we wanted to sort of focus on having a little chat about horror and then talking about Werewolf by Night. So we went for kind of single issue only. And there was a very specific reason why I picked what I picked. And I hadn't mentioned to you why I picked what I picked, but I'll bring that up when we actually start talking about it. But At the very least, for sort of sticker shock value, it was the Avengers Halloween special, and it had Halloween in the title, so fit the show more than anything else.
Yeah.
Avengers being quite a big deal these days, and it was relatively newish. So I thought, well, let's go with something new because it was
So what, 2018?
2018. Yeah. Now I will say before we go into anything else, kind of dubious by Avengers being on it, because this isn't an Avengers Halloween special, is it? This is a kind of some characters from the Marvel Universe Halloween special, of which only a few of them have a connection to the Avengers. So, yeah, I think they knew what they were doing. They put this on the shelf to attract kids who were around Halloween time and like the Avengers. So, go into it with kind of that open mind of, or sorry, not that open mind. We're going to talk about something that's clearly there to shill more comics. So it is a bit of an advertising. And is it 5 stories? I should know.
Yeah.
I should check this beforehand. Yeah. So the issue is split up into 5 small stories. That the premise is I think it even says your heroes don't exist in this world. This is
Just
what happens. This is what happens to your heroes. And then we get 5 individual stories about what almost kind of what if-esque, isn't it? Like what if this happened, or some of that gubbing. So
it's very much like a serial, like Tales from the Crypt or something of that sort of akin.
And that was probably the lean that they were going for, wasn't it? That was the vibe that they were going for. So we have a Daredevil story, we have a Fantastic Four story, we have a Punisher story. Oh my god, why can't I remember what other characters?
Iron Man and Captain America.
Yes.
And X-Men.
Yes. Before we go over, let's touch on. We'll touch on all of them. But was there any you preferred more than the others? Was there a standout for you?
Yeah, there's one that I really like. There's one that's okay, and the rest are just like whatever.
Yeah. So let's go with the one you like the most first. So let's focus on the positive.
So Daredevil, the Daredevil one.
The eyes have it.
Yeah, and I very much thought this is a great idea. I want to have more of this. I was hoping that this would go longer and it wouldn't have the finish that it has.
It was very short as well, wasn't it? It's only like 5-6 pages.
And I was just like, I want even if it was a limited miniseries of like 3 or 4 issues, just more of this and just spread it out longer because it's the only one that for the character makes sense and you could do something with. All of the other ones, to me, which we'll obviously go into more detail later with, but all seem to make no sense for the characters that they were using for it. It just seemed that they were thrown in just because, oh shit, we've put Avengers on the cover. We better put some superheroes in it. This seems like the only one.
I'm not going to say that wasn't their thinking, though, Chris. I think that might have been their consideration point for a lot of the other stories. I mean, with this Daredevil one, I mean, the premise is, isn't it, is that Daredevil's getting an operation, isn't he, to fix his eyesight. Yeah, and
an eye transplant.
Yeah, and he does, doesn't he? And he can see again, and then he starts to see Bullseye, doesn't he? And in an attempt to save Foggy from Bullseye, he actually kills Foggy, and then you
start seeing the dead and other people that are no longer with us because of actions caused by Daredevil or his foes.
And then you get kind of the macabre twist where you find out that the doctor doing a transplant had been threatened by someone. Dun, dun, dun. And they've put hallucinogenics into his tear ducts. So he will see, but he will constantly hallucinate the worst possible things. And then you get the reveal of the person who did it is, I guess, his arch nemesis now, isn't it, really, in Kingpin. And that's where the story ends. But yeah, like you, I thought there's a bit more meat on this bone, isn't there? You could do more with this, and even like this, limited amount of pages. But you go, if this was told maybe over a longer period and kind of dragged out, he gets his sight back, and slowly but surely things start to happen. This could have been quite a harrowing story. I didn't know going in like which one you would like the most, because I read it same time as you. I'd not read it before. It's not one I picked out because I thought, oh, that would be good. But this is the one why I picked it. Do you know the writer?
No, I didn't look at who did the writing on any of them.
So the writer is a guy called Rob Fee. Do you know who Rob Fee is?
Name doesn't ring a bell, but I'm shit with names.
Well, he is, and this is why I picked it. He is the guy that's recently been hired by the WWE to be the long-term story writer for all of their stories. And when they hired him, there was all this talk about Marvel writer Rob Fee. And we love wrestling. For anyone who doesn't know this, we love wrestling. Been out of love with WWE for quite a long time. But when I hear someone being hired who writes comics, I was just like, well, I've never heard of him. What's he done? And I had a look, and he hasn't done a lot at Marvel, but this was one of the things that he'd done. So I went, brilliant. Let's go with it. And yeah, I thought it was albeit he's in charge of long-term story writing for WWE, and this is one of the shortest stories you'll ever get. But I thought I got quite a nice little story. Like it makes me think that he's got a bit of a dark side to him, and can play with pre-existing ideas. So it gave me a little bit of faith for what might be to come for that WWE.
Yeah, it definitely. As I said, this is the only one out of this that I would want more of, and doesn't feel like it's just let's hammer in superheroes into just any old shit just because we've said Avengers on the cover.
See, I didn't mind the next one either. It's Whatever Happened to the Richards Family, which is it posits like the world where what happens to the Fantastic Four happens. They go up in a spaceship and they get bombarded with cosmic rays, and you see Victor Von Doom kind of go, well, bullshit, like that's not that's not going to have happened. And he posits that they are aliens that have taken over. So he goes and takes single-handed justice, which he does, doesn't he? He goes on a Kill Bill-esque crazy rampage against them all, but ultimately doesn't take out the Invisible Woman. And then you get the reveal that yes, he was right, and that they were taken over by aliens, but he's now captive, and he's going to stay there dormant in his prison, watching them take over the world. And this one I quite liked, but it's I liked it because of the size, the length it was. I don't want to see any more of it. You couldn't do any more with it, but I thought as a little kind of filler short story, that one was fine for me.
Yeah, to me, this one it just didn't really go anywhere. I just don't think that it really lent itself to anything. Maybe it's because of
it's a retelling, isn't it? It's just it's a reimagining of what could have been. And yeah, I didn't mind it from that perspective.
Yeah, it looked pretty. I'll give it that. It did look pretty, especially the stabbing of Human Torch.
Yeah, I don't know the pencil on this, Laura Braga. I don't know of any other work that she's done, and if I've seen it, it's not an artist I know. Although it's saying that throughout this, there's a lot of writers I knew, but not a lot of artists I knew.
Yeah, and Doctor Doom looks cool, as Doctor Doom always does.
Oh yeah, he's the Don though, isn't he?
Yeah, but yeah, wasn't the greatest one.
Next one up to plate, I think, is my worst, which is the Thing from Another Time. Now, I almost don't want it to have that title, because effectively this is the movie The Thing, isn't it? Told over 5 pages with Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, and Deadpool for no apparent reason. But Tony is going to the Antarctic to take out Captain America, because Captain America has been unfrozen and he's doing bad things. But also a suggestion that Tony Stark isn't the greatest person in the world, and because he kicks Deadpool out the plane. Oh no, sorry, Deadpool kicks Colossus out the
Yeah.
plane doesn't need to go down and take him out. But effectively, Steve Rogers has got something going on with him, something Thing-like from the movie The Thing. The Thing. They fucking love using the Thing throughout this. And then you get Tony go down, and like Steve Rogers talked about how he took out his dad because his dad tried to do the same thing in Armour and all this. And then they kind of fight to the point where Tony's armor has run out of power, hasn't it? But also he's locked into it. And then you get this moment where they're both sat there with a fire burning, kind of going, I'll outlast you. In a scene reminiscent to the end of The Thing, but just really badly done. And I think that's why I dislike this one so much, because I love The Thing. The Thing's an amazing movie, one of my favourite movies of all time. And this is just someone kind of going, let's tack some shit on top of this that doesn't really make sense, and I don't know, just a poor job for me.
Yeah, this is very much what I mean, that they've just thrown superheroes into any old shit. Someone clearly watched The Thing the night before and went, oh fuck, I need to write something. Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, they've been given a paycheck to write a story, a 5-issue story for this. They've left it till the last night and gone, bollocks, what can I do? Yeah, that's what it felt like to me.
And the next one for me is very similar. Of, did you just watch the Phantom of the Opera the night before?
Yeah. And then stick the Punisher in it.
Yeah.
It wasn't good, was it? Let's be honest.
No. Again, very, very, very there with this. And then we have the last one.
The Haunted Mansion, which is the X-Men-esque one, isn't it?
Yeah. Which, again, it just seems like, oh, fuck, we haven't used the X-Men recently. Let's just chuck the X-Men in.
I quite like this one. But this one I quite liked because I think I'd have been interested to read more, or it to be in a longer form. The idea of sort of two kids going to a haunted mansion, which we find out is the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, and they start to get kind of scared and spooked in this spooky place, and then you see all the X-Men villains, and you find out all ghosts, etc., etc. But I don't know. This one had some charm for me, but there just wasn't enough in the pages to be overly interested. But it was one of the few where I kind of went, yeah, I could have, much like you said about the Daredevil one, I could have read more of this, but it felt like an indie comic, is the honest truth. It felt like the beginning of an indie comic. Yeah. And then there were some X-Men characters thrown in. But yeah, this one I didn't mind so much. But I would say, I mean, overall, the problem for me is it's just it's just a pamphlet, isn't it? It's kind of an advertising pamphlet of going, here are some of our characters, and
it stinks.
It feels a bit cheap and nasty, doesn't it?
It stinks of the sort of samplers that you used to get as free comic books.
Yeah.
Back in the day, sort of before Free Comic Book Day was more of a thing, and they were doing, like, you'd get issue 1s of stuff like they do now, whereas back in the day it would be, here's Batman for 3 pages, here's Superman for 3 pages, here's this character for 3. It just stinks of that. And as I said, other than the Daredevil one, it all just seems very much, let's just force these characters into something that doesn't really do anything, but we've chucked the Avengers and named it Avengers on the cover. That'll do.
Well, one of the things I didn't like, you mentioned the cover is sort of, I say chock full of, but it's got like Venom on it, who isn't in it. It's got kids dressed up as Spidey and Thor who aren't in it, and yeah, it just feels really. I mean, and it's not 2018 anymore, so unlikely probably to be anywhere where someone would be buying this. But if someone said to me, "Oh, would you recommend this for like my kid?" Well, I'd go no, and not because even necessarily because of the nature of the content. I'd just go no, because this isn't a good starting point for comics. It's the bad way of selling them for me.
Yeah, so it's not one that I'll be going to Will and going, you need to read this.
Yeah, yeah. As I say, I'd be telling people to avoid it. But if there's a bonus I can take out from it, I quite liked the very small snippet we saw of that Rob Fee. So let's hope that makes the rest of the industry stronger because he's not awful.
Exactly. So, should we go to the cinema? Or I say cinema, streaming
Home cinema.
via
Yeah.
via Disney Plus.
To be fair, most people's houses are probably as powerful as a cinema now. Unless you're in my house, which I've got room for a TV of a certain size. That's it. Like I can never upgrade to big because I can only put it in one place in the room, and it's very limited on how wide you can put how wide a TV you can put in there. But yeah, we're in Disney Plus land, aren't we? And we're in the, let's say, the Marvel extended universe. Do we call it the cinematic universe? Because I think everything kind of comes under that banner now, doesn't it? There's no non-canon anymore, is it? Everything is at least to a degree interlinked, and this certainly feels like it is part of the universe proper, and something that is the first time they've done this, I think, since we've gone to Disney Plus, which is release a singular story as a special that is interwoven into the whole universe. So we're not having to watch 10 episodes, 6 episodes, whatever length series, and it's not long enough to be a film, I guess, and they're not going to pump it through the cinema.
Yeah, so I knew nothing of this. I mean, the first thing I heard about it was a couple of weeks beforehand, it coming out with it saying coming soon on Disney. So yeah, I come into this cold.
I can't remember when they announced it, but I remember hearing about it at announcement and thinking, "Oh yes, please." But yes, please, because it felt like it had a chance of being something different because of the nature of it. I didn't think we were going to get some of the more generic fare that maybe sometimes we've seen, certainly with the Disney Plus stuff. So I was quietly hopeful at first, and then I saw the trailer, and the trailer made me even more hopeful. In fact, it made me hopeful to the point of going, "Oh, I've got my hopes up too much here, haven't I? And you're going to bitterly let me down when this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be." And looked at some of the cast, and I just thought, "Yeah, this could be good." Was my build up to it, but I think I kind of went a bit quiet on it because I almost didn't want to curse it by talking about it too much. Freehand.
So yeah, so as I said, I like super cold. I don't even know what any of this has in relation to Marvel. And I said I've never read any Werewolf at Night. I'm not 100% sure who anyone really was in this. But I went in to sort of go with it.
Did that feel quite nice?
It did.
Like in the world that we've been in for, let's be honest, the last 10 years at this point of going, you can't move for it, and you can't move from it being pushed down your throat if you like it or not. And even if you do like it, like really getting pushed on you and all that kind of having to avoid everything online because there's spoilers. This one did feel like it was under the radar enough that it wasn't, you weren't sick of it before it came out.
Yeah.
Which, we've talked about burnout before, and I think sometimes I'm less burnt out with the product and I'm more burnt out with the machine that pushes it. Like when I'm having to avoid any bloody, like an Argos catalogue for 7 months beforehand because they'll have toys in there that spoil a movie like that.
Yeah.
That feels like it's gone too far. Whereas this had none of that. But yeah, was that refreshing? Like not having any of that bullshit surrounding it.
Yeah, and the thing is, when I first put it on, as I said, because I had no idea or anything of like who anyone was or what it was about. I just, Werewolf at Night. I thought, horror, obviously, werewolves. But when you turn it on and it's black and white and it's,
did you immediately go fucking WandaVision? Come on, the last good thing they made on here was black and white.
I was like, this stinks of Hammer horror.
Yes,
this stinks of like 50s, 60s TV.
Yeah.
And I'm for it. And
because I'm guessing you hadn't watched the trailer.
No.
because that's the thing. When I watched the trailer, it stank of Hammer, it stank of 50s, 60s, and that was why I was a little bit scared because I was going, "Oh, please don't suggest that you're going to do this." And then when I actually switch it on 2 seconds into it, it will be. And I don't want to be too critical of usual Marvel fare, but I didn't want it to be usual Marvel fare because this felt like something they could do different. It was set up for them to do different, and it felt like they were going to. So I'm glad to say that that's what you got certainly early doors in it.
Yeah, and the fact that quite early on, so you see the bloodstone, and you're like, that has to be the only thing that's in color, and it is, and I'm just like, yes,
Yeah, yeah. It's
and
it's those sort of touches, isn't it? That we've witted on about stuff like this before, but for me, whenever I look at anything on TV and anything on movies, some of the stuff that differentiates things from being average to below average to something that really resonates with me is touches like that. You see that kind of little bit of extra effort, bit of pride in what they're producing, and that really resonates with me. And when that kind of happens, it makes me buy into or forgive maybe some of the less great stuff that might be to come, because I just think, okay, like you're not going to get everything right, but yeah, that lovely little touches like the bloodstone, as you say, sort of standing out in this. And when I say black and white, it's not just black and white, is it? It doesn't just feel like, it's not just they filmed it and then they put a black and white filter over it. This is a black and white movie, isn't it, that they're making here? Like they really lean into it. Everything is designed to accentuate the black and white. Like the shadows are really kind of over proportion to kind of really push it, and everything is moody, gloomy. You've got the storm going in the background, so you get those flashes of light everywhere. So yeah, really stylish, beautiful.
and it has. So you say there about like a noir filter.
Yeah,
There are a few bits that it does have an aged look to it as well.
yes,
But
yeah,
it does look like it is run through like an aging thing to give it that sort of. There are bits where it's quite grainy
yeah.
at times, and then other times it's really like crystal clear, and the mix between the two. I'm like, yes, yes, please, thank you very much. Um, so yeah, visually, fucking stunning. This.
And you said about the characters. So I come into it with more knowledge of the characters. So I've read. I don't think I've ever read a Werewolf by Night series, but he certainly appeared in issues of things that I've read. Generally, as kind of guest appearance. Man Thing. There's a couple of series that I really like with him in, but again, he's more of an has generally been more of an occasional character
Yeah.
in the Marvel universe. The one that I had the most experience with was Elsa Bloodstone. So this is you mentioned the Bloodstone. This is about the Bloodstone family, and the Bloodstone family were are monster hunters. That's our premise here, isn't it? These they go out and they kill werewolves and vampires. When you start off, there in the room there are lots of trophies on the wall, but they aren't like an elephant's horn, are they? They're a vampire bat's head and things like that. But yeah, I've had a lot of experience with Elsa, who has I've generally found very interesting. But I think that's because the writers that have got her have found her interesting and done some really good stuff with her. Slightly different to the portrayal we're seeing here, but that's the character I probably had the most. But the mythos I have more of an experience with, because I've heard that mentioned and used in things like Doctor Strange comics and things like that. So the kind of world they play in that Marvel dark world, I'm quite au fait with that. But yeah. So I a bit more, but I come into it somewhat cold, and I liked that because I went, yeah, tell me that story that I don't know yet. Because normally when we're watching the Marvel stuff, we know the story as well, and it does make it a harder sell, because when you know what's going to happen at the end, it's all about how they get there at that point. They can't just win off of a great surprise ending, because we ain't getting a surprise ending, so they've got to just tell the story really well.
Yeah. So with this, as I said, I had no idea who anyone was. I very quickly worked out that the guy with the dots on his face was going to be something special, because they sort of framed it around him quite early on, and then obviously when Elsa turns up, they say, yeah, it's the daughter of the guy that's just died and should be the honourable owner of the Bloodstone.
But family betrayal has led to her, not her just dicking off and not wanting to stay with family tradition. That's why this is being contested. Traditionally, the Bloodstone would pass through the family, but effectively they've gone, no, you weren't loyal enough, so now we're going to have a competition amongst these best. Yeah, the best of the monster hunters are going to hunt a monster that is on site, and winner kind of gets the Bloodstone. But also, it's made quite clear that you don't necessarily have to win by honourable means. You know, you can just take out all the other dudes and dudettes to get there.
Though my favourite part of this is around this part where we get the animated wind-up corpse tell us about the competition and how it's going to go down. And I was just like, schlocky 50s horror.
Do you know what though? You say
so
that.
Well done.
You say that, but that also felt a bit to me like a lean to even more, and I say more modern. That wouldn't have felt out of place in a Rob Zombie movie for me.
No.
You know, and I think it kind of that's where I felt like it had its foot in lots of different camps that I liked, because as you say, you know, it's the sort of thing they would have had in the 50s but couldn't have done to this level, so couldn't have added the humour quite so much in that it was that that I'd expect in maybe something more Rob Zombie these days. But yeah, I really like that bit. That really stood out for me as well.
And the key turner literally, is absolutely going for it's just a tiny little sight gag, but
very un-Marvel.
Yeah,
very un what we see in Marvel.
That stinks of original Addams Family as a sight gag.
Actually, yeah. And but again, we haven't seen this other than for me. We saw a bit of it in Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, where they lent into Sam Raimi horror, but it was Sam Raimi horror, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we haven't really seen this side of the Marvel universe, and I'm really glad they let them do it this way, because God, if this had been I hate to use this because I don't want people to think I don't like the Guardians. I love the Guardians, but if this had been Guardians-esque humour, I think it would have just felt like. But that's the thing; it would have just felt like, oh, here we go, the same again. Whereas this feels like they've said to people, right, go and make something horror related, and they've gone, okay, I like these different eras of horror. I'm going to smudge them together for this product.
But it's even if you think sort of like old school Hammer films and stuff, even those sort of things still had the moments of comedy in them, the sight gags and things like that. So whoever's made this definitely has a love for old school horror.
So you know how like I tend to be the one that leans a bit more into like the directors and stuff like that. It's one of my kind of obsessions. And when you say whoever made this is one of the most remarkable things for me. It's the first thing he's done. This is his first directing job. And I say first, I think he's done a short. But yeah, it's his first big directing job.
Give this man.
Oh yeah.
So, as whatever he wants, and go make more.
So
sort of thing, please.
More known as a composer. So like he composed like parts of the soundtrack for Up, Jojo Rabbit. I've got it here. Some of the Jurassic Park stuff, some of the more recent Star Wars stuff, Inside Out. So he's all up in Disney as a from the music side of it. But yeah, this is his first job as director. Yeah. That's exactly what I thought when I looked at, because I hadn't looked beforehand. I'd seen some of the actors who are in it, and I thought, oh, do you know what? Yeah, I quite like some of them actors, and I hadn't even thought to look to who the director was. And I watched it and went, oh, I tell you, I really like that. I'm going to see what else they've done, and yeah, really surprised me. Really impressed. Really, really impressed.
Yes.
I think he might be composing less going forward and directing more going forward.
But so I don't know who owns like the Hammer rights or the Universal Monster rights nowadays, but I would love to see this guy get hold of some of those licenses and
It'd have to be Hammer because if he gets hold of Universal, they're tied in with Tom Cruise, aren't they? So I don't want to watch. No matter how good this guy was, I struggle to think that that he could make something decent with Tom Cruise in a horror movie.
Yeah, scrap that. But yeah, the Hammer stuff. Yeah, just yeah. No, I definitely want to see more of this. Um, the the fighting, shall we say, where they're in competition trying to get them.
Yeah,
Again, so 50s, 60s horror film. They're intense fights, but they're not like, oh shit, let's have a massive spectacle.
yeah, yeah. They're not
They,
modern fights, are they?
no,
They're not like we can knock all the bells of shite out of each other for 25 minutes just because that will look cool in an action scene. There's some logic behind it.
yeah, everything makes sense. It's like the Asian guy with the arrows on his wrist.
Yeah,
The smashing the door into it and then chopping the arm off so he can't then shoot it again.
yeah.
And then shoving an arrow in his face and holding him so he's struggling to not give away to the big guy with the axe.
Because everything's happening on the estate, isn't it? On the
Yeah,
Bloodstone estate. So whilst it's big, a lot of it feels contained, doesn't it? So they are in sort of small courtyards, or
yeah,
they're going from room to room, and things like that. So it does allow them, I think, to be. It reminded me of some of that creativity we saw in Daredevil on Netflix, where they'd obviously thought about how to do their fight scenes. And they went, well, let's use the surroundings we've got, and if we minimise the size of that surrounding, we can be quite smart with what can be done and what you can use as weapons or as things to disarm people. And yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was really, really well handled.
and again with that as well, it's like when they're locked in the crypt.
Yeah,
There's a smartness to you've got very small room to play in.
yeah,
How are you going to do it? Yet still having sight gags
yeah,
that are in keeping with the tone of it, like getting the arm out and lobbing it down to him, and like as a sort of he holds it as like wave it slightly, like
yeah.
and just oh
Well, because we have, I mean, what becomes quite clear quite early, and I quite liked all of the hunters, but you can only do so much of them because they're cannon fodder, aren't they? You know, like
yeah
this is about Elsa and Jack, and very shortly get on to who else this is about. But they're both in this same competition with all these people who are pro hunters and quite proud, aren't they? They're quite proud of their achievements, how many
yeah
monsters they've killed, but it's almost overly proud, isn't it? To the point where they don't care that they're monsters anymore. It's just a sport now. You know,
yeah
like I guess there's an equivalency there to hunters in the real world who used to hunt for a purpose, probably to eat, but now they hunt for sport, so they have all the advantages in the world and all of that jazz. Um, but they were quite visually impressive. Like I liked them. They all had a distinct look, and they all
yeah
seemed interested enough. So I was happy for them to be along for this, but understanding that they were going to go. But Jack, the main character, who ultimately, well, spoilers if you haven't seen it, is the werewolf by night. But you can tell early doors, and as you say, he's framed as that kind of main person, that he's different to them.
yeah
That isn't really his motivation, and we've already had that established with Elsa, is that she left that game but has kind of come back. So yeah, whilst running around this estate and trying to not get killed is a primary goal, but then you find out that Jack's primary goal is to actually save the monster. So he knows the monster that is being captured or has been captured and is being hunted. And I don't know whether do they name him at this point?
yes, because no, it's not at this bit. It's when he then speaks to Elsie about it whilst they're in the crypt,
Yeah, yeah.
and you know,
But what do you think of your initial visual of what we'll use the term man thing, which is
yeah.
what he is? Or
I was gonna say when I first saw it, I was like, "Hang on, that's Swamp Thing. Why have they?"
yeah,
Swamp Thing's DC. What's Swamp Thing doing here? Was my initial thing, and then I went, "Oh no, this is of the age of they basically copied each other anyway.
Yeah. You got a
It's
swamp
probably
thing. You've got a swamp monster. I've got a swamp monster. Let's call the whole thing off. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think he looked so fucking cool.
Yeah. So before the show come out, I didn't necessarily know that Man Thing was going to be in it, but certainly there was a few rumours, and he kind of again he's in that world of it. But he's one of the ones that I was slightly concerned about because I thought it might be a tricky visual to pull off. I think debuting him in black and white really helped.
Yeah.
Because I think it made him really stand out. But I will say they got him spot on to the best visuals I've seen of him in the comic. There have been times where I've seen the visuals drop a little bit, but yeah, I'm amazed at how well they did him.
And the thing is also with this, I don't know whether it was a practical suit or if it was all CGI, but it looked real. It didn't look out of place in the black and white noir. Yeah, so it looked like a practical suit, which is the one thing that with a lot of stuff with that you know with Marvel stuff you switch your brain off, you know that it's CGI, you know that it's all fantasy and make believe and computer wizardry. This, as I said, with how he looks, especially in the black and white, I was like, is that just a dude in a suit?
Yeah, and very early doors. I mean, you get the reveal and very very tropey and schlocky, but I still think done quite well. Where Jack's kind of running around and he bumps into the monster as the monster's kind of roar, and then suddenly isn't roar because she realizes it's Jack, and that's where you find out that actually they're working together, and then he takes on what I thought of when I was watching it as almost dog-like mannerisms, doesn't he? Kind of like, oh, it's the lovely person who helps me, kind of thing. And yeah, just really good. Straight away, I was like, brilliant, love him, want to see more of him. And yeah, sorry. Then you end up with Jack trying to hide, save Elsa, and them going into a crypt together. But she says, "Don't shut the door," because she realizes if you shut the door, you get locked in, and you get some comedy moments there, don't you? And I know you've mentioned it before, but this feels like a kind of, when I say I want some different stuff from Marvel than what I tend to see, I know I'm going to get some humor in it though. I know I'm going to get those Marvel humor moments, and it felt like this part of it was what had that, and I didn't mind it because it was interspace with other stuff that was interesting,
and it fit the tone. It wasn't which was obviously when we did for the Love and Thunder, it was just, oh look, here's our joke, we're gonna hammer it home 70,000 times.
Yeah,
this felt naturally funny.
Yeah, it's kind of like semi-confident, cocksure people trying to show off in front of each other the first time they meet him. Like that happens, doesn't it? And I could buy into that with these. And I don't know if we've mentioned it yet, but I just want to clarify. Do you know what his full name is?
What, Jack's?
Yeah.
No.
Jack Russell. Now, it obviously, and I think they didn't. I don't remember whether they mentioned it in the show, but like I think again of its time, like when the character was created, they went, "Well, no, we're going to turn him into a werewolf. Let's give him a name that's like that's like a dog." So there will and there are always kind of elements of that surround it that I'm glad they didn't lean into too heavily, because that could have just been, and I think they'll use it at some point if and when the character comes back, but they're going to hammer that home. Like if this was another set of creatives there, that they wouldn't have stayed away from that, would they? That'd have been the whole episode would have been dog jokes, wouldn't it?
Yeah. We then see that they get caught as they trying to escape with, again, another bit of humor that fits. That he's got a bomb disc that he tries to throw at the wall and it doesn't blow up, and he keeps trying to do it. And it's very very sort of aeroplane sort of level of humor.
I thought Inspector Clouseau-esque, like
Yeah,
because he's getting it wrong, but at least he realizes he's getting it wrong, and he tries different ways to do it, doesn't he? Like he tries throwing it a couple of times, and that isn't working. So then he tries to kind of stick it to the wall, and then that doesn't work. And
yeah,
you know, yeah, I quite it didn't feel out of place for this, and of course, then it led to the wall blowing up, and you just getting this wonderful moment where the man thing, like a. It reminded me of Braun Strowman from the wrestling when he would do his choo-choo train thing around the ring, just kind of hozzing his ass out of there, and I just thought it
yeah.
was great. So it was absolutely wonderful moment of this big looming monster just going, right, I'm out.
Gone.
Yeah,
Yeah. It said this up to here. I'm like, yeah, I'm all in. They obviously get caught. They get taken back into the main hall, and basically sort of let because they're conspiring together. They know that Jack is not human.
yeah.
Um,
They caged them together, don't they?
yeah, and then again, really cleverly done visually. You see him transform into a werewolf, but not done in a American Werewolf in London or what was the one where Wesley Snipes was a werewolf?
Oh, I don't know that. Wesley Snipes, the werewolf.
Yeah, it's something in the 90s, but that sort of lots of money sort of thrown into the
Yeah,
CG to make it the change, and it's like you don't need that. It's done on a shadow in the background,
yeah.
and that
I look cool,
just
didn't it? Looks
it
so
just
cool.
makes it so impressive, and like again fitting the 50s 60s vibe of you wouldn't see the change because you couldn't do those effects. It
And
just
also
fits it.
sort of post that and you know we get trouble a brewing there, don't we get like fighting, and when I say we get fighting, we get lots of killing, and I don't think they kind of focus in too much on that, because I don't think it's necessary to focus on it too much, but um you start to kind of roughly see him visually, don't you? And but when you do get the reveal of what he looks like, I really liked it, because
Yeah,
it looked like a werewolf as we probably saw when werewolves first started coming into cinema and first started coming into fantasy and fiction, and looked in keeping with roughly the size he was as an actor. So
yeah,
he's a bit bigger, but actually because he's werewolf, he's kind of hunched up, so he brings himself kind of back down to that level. But yeah, it looked more Hammer House horror werewolf than the massive muscle. I mean, he doesn't turn into the Hulk.
no,
He doesn't suddenly get like dimensions bigger, and I really like, and I thought it was really brave of them, really brave of him to do that, the director, because I just can't imagine there weren't Disney execs going, well,
make it huge.
yeah, like we want to hoik a load of toys off this, and no one's going to buy like the little werewolf toy, are they? And this felt like creativity over ranking marketing, which
Yeah,
often we don't see. So I thought it was really good. That whole part of it, and this is one of my fears and the breaking points. Where I sort of said going into it, from the trailer, it had like the Hammer House sort of feels to it, and I'm getting that, and it seemed like they were going to lean into the spooky, kooky sort of side of it, and to this point, I got it. But this was kind of one of the bits where I go, oh, you haven't shown him yet. This could be where it goes wrong for me, but really pleased it didn't. For
yeah,
me, I loved it. Again, I'm very positive on this, but
and
yeah, I thought they dealt with this part really well.
and the thing is, he is violent and aggressive and angry as a werewolf should be,
Yeah,
but it's also done in a way that yes, there's gore, but it's not gore for the sake of gore,
no, no,
and
felt well placed, didn't it?
also the subtleness of like the blood spurting onto the camera and staying on the camera
Yeah,
whilst you're watching it, and just great. Obviously, we then get Ted back,
I was going to say, very, very quickly, one of the reasons, and like, you know, he has that discussion with Elsa, doesn't he? When they're trapped in there, he kind of goes, "Oh my God, you don't want to be in here with me." Like, you know, he basically confesses that that he is a monster and this could go badly for her. But he sniffs her, doesn't he? Like, he does kind of the sniff test to go, sometimes this has worked before. If I'm familiar with you, it might save your life. So you see that he is going back to something that like happens right at the beginning of the episode. All these hunters just see that monsters are monsters.
Yeah.
That's all they can be. Whereas he's going, no, we can be more than that. We're just different. And for him, it's probably more of a battle than it is for Ted, Man Thing, as you say. But like, but there's a bit more of a. I mean, that's its message, really. I guess, isn't it? That's the whole point of the character design, or certainly what some of the creatives did in comics in years later. Is that just because someone looks different doesn't mean that they're bad. And I think it's handled well. I'm not going to say like super subtle. You know, there is some hammer free moments on it, but it didn't feel horrible hammer free moments. It felt like, yeah, I kind of know my audience here. I might need to be a little bit clearer with some of them, but but no, really good stuff.
What did you think of the end part where it then goes into colour?
Loved it. I think you could have carried on, but I think for me it was almost your full stop of the story. So yeah, as we get to the end, color starts to kind of vibrantly come through the world, doesn't it? And you get to see Elsa in the Bloodstone hall. Kind of the color goes there, and then you go off to what looks like a very idyllic location where Man Thing and Jack are sat on a hill together and talking. But considering how much I loved it in its black and white state for that story, I did quite like that transition into the color world, because it then proved to me that they could make Man Thing look good in color as well, and I think it needed that.
Yeah, I think Man Thing in color did look computer made, with how like the fungus and stuff was growing off him and bits like that. I think he looked better black and white, but it said the color turn is a very definitive, and we're done.
Yeah,
and it is needed for, it was needed for that part of it. I just think that Man Thing definitely looked better as black and white in the noir filter than.
But at some point, if you are going to use him elsewhere, and I think they will, they can't make everything he's in black and white, because I think they'll want to use him in some of the more mainstream products.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, and hopefully, because I mean, here we go, like the comics to the movies. His shtick in the comics is that he's like the guardian stroke is the nexus of all realities, so people can pass through to other parts of the multiverse with him. And considering all the multiverse stuff that's going on, I imagine he'll be utilized again for that, or maybe not. But it would seem odd for them to not utilize him later, now that they've got him in there. But I mean, if they didn't, I mean, for me, I think they established Jack as someone I would like to see again. Man Thing as someone I'd like to see again, and I'd really like to see Elsa again. And I think Elsa's probably the one that is easiest to transition into other products.
Yeah,
because she is. You don't have to kind of write a story where you need a swamp monster or you need a werewolf. She could just rock up and get involved in things. I could easily see her being in Blade, although I guess arguably you could say the same thing for Jack and a werewolf. But but I'd also like it to be on the side of it. You know, as much as I could see them, I would like to see more of these characters, but I don't. I want them to create this pocket. It feels to me a little bit like this. This felt to me a little bit like when Netflix got Jessica Jones and Daredevil, of almost going, yeah, you're in the extended universe, but you're off over there and you can do some cool stuff over there.
Yeah, I didn't say it's what I would like is if where there's a monster in New York or something, and Daredevil needs someone with some expertise. So
Yeah.
there's Elsa,
Yeah.
or that sort of a cameo things. I wouldn't want them living in that world, or even living in the MCU sort of where we are with like Avengers and all that sort of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, as I say, with that nexus of all realities, you can see that there could be a link up, but it feels like there doesn't need to be. As I say, there's loads of shit that goes on in the world. Like, I know X amount of people who know X amount of people who know X amount of people. I don't know everyone in the world. I'm not going to interlink with everyone in the world. Even in like the stuff that you and I both do as a living, we're unlikely to meet everyone else who ever in the world who does that as a living.
Yeah.
So people can have their own stories. And I don't know, like one of the things that I thought was really cool for me and really, I guess, brave was the casting, because like the lass Laura Donnelly who plays Elsa, I don't really know her from anything other than I believe she's the main actress from Outlander, which I've never seen, but I've heard great things about from people who've seen it. But I really liked her in this. I thought she was fantastic, and God, I am going to have to look this up because I don't want to butcher his name. But Gael Garcia Bernal, who plays Jack Russell, I know him from Amores Perros, where he plays an amazing character in a film ostensibly about being poor in a world of dogfighting. And then I know he's done other stuff since. I've seen other stuff since, but for him to be that guy I saw from there, and years later be a character in a Marvel, and not the sort of person that they often cast, I thought it was great, and I think he really stood out in it for me.
Yeah, as I said, I think everyone in it is fucking great. Well worth your hour of your time.
God, yeah. I mean, I said I don't think we did it on here, or if we did, apologies. But and maybe we'll pick up at some point because you haven't seen it. But I really like Miss Marvel. I thought Miss Marvel was a really great series, and that is the only thing that for me that has been on Disney Plus since WandaVision that I would even consider in that good range. And then this come along, and I would say that this doesn't hit WandaVision levels for me, but it ain't too far off it, and it's the best thing I've seen them do since then. So yeah, a big thumbs up from me.
Yeah, it's definitely the best thing since WandaVision. But as I said, I've dropped out. I haven't watched Moon Knight. I haven't watched She-Hulk, and I haven't watched Miss Marvel because I've been burnt out with the TV since Hawkeye, and the films haven't done enough in the last few to make me warrant going, oh, I need to go and watch all the TV too. But yeah, no, this, I'm all for it, and you can have this as a separate little thing, and next year we get another one, and I'm all for it. Just give me one every Halloween.
I hope you're right. I hope we see, and I'm going to say more specials, but what I don't want is specials to become there's a new special every month. But I hope we see some more specials, because I think allowing creators to dip into parts of the universe that others aren't going to play with and aren't going to mess with the big toys.
Yeah,
I think there's something in that, because I think that's when you can be creative and do this really cool stuff. And I do want a special this time next year. I I think I'd be surprised if it wasn't at least involving some of these. I don't necessarily think it has to though. Like if I got a Halloween S special next year that maybe did some other characters, I'd take that as well, because I have a bit of confidence now that they can do this. My biggest thing that I think they did wrong here, and we wouldn't be recording this show if we were able to put it up in the week of Halloween if they did, but I was bloody surprised they dropped it so much before Halloween. I don't understand why they didn't have this as a Halloween release. I don't know whether Disney have got anything else coming on Halloween, but for me, I'd have just gone bang, Halloween night, release it.
Well, it's the same with, I'm surprised sort of Disney did the same thing. They dropped Hocus Pocus 2 at the beginning of October as well.
Yeah, I forgot that coming out as well.
That's a big Halloweeny thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless they're just going with the concept of, well, it's Halloween month.
Yeah.
Here's your new spooky shit.
Yeah, I mean, fuck me. Us as a channel, we're having 8 days of Halloween releasing videos, I guess. But I just think these felt like potentially marquee releases that would have been really nice if they come out on the day. You know, it would have been lovely to kind of go, oh, Halloween. Although, having said that, I guess probably the big difference is that their biggest market is going to be the US market, isn't it? And actually, do people watch TV on Halloween in America? All that
Yeah.
trick or treating. So maybe there is some logic there. But for me, yeah, it felt like maybe a mistake, or even if not, to get it right close, like maybe the Thursday before or something like that. But a small criticism.
Though maybe they didn't trust it enough with it being just because it says the word Marvel on it, doesn't mean that people are going to jump on it.
I haven't looked at viewing figures, which is hard to measure these days in the world of streaming, but certainly streaming services seem to like raise the flag if it's done particularly well. But I haven't looked. I almost don't want to look because I feel like it probably hasn't got the attention that some of the other stuff has.
Yeah.
Maybe because it wasn't marketed so big and it was a single issue, single episode, and things like that. But I mean, that's a kind of reality of the world, isn't it? That you don't always being the best quality doesn't always bring in the biggest viewers. But yeah, I haven't looked to see how well it's done. But certainly, I can't imagine it hasn't done well. But maybe not
Disney
stratosphere level. Yeah.
But it's a definite recommend from Bus.
Oh God, yeah. If you only watch one thing on, like, I know you said you haven't seen Miss Marvel or Moon Knight or She-Hulk. I've still got She-Hulk to watch. But I would say this calendar year of anything that's come out on Disney Plus, it's the only thing that I would say is absolute. You should watch it. And that's been a big love of Miss Marvel as well. But I'd say Miss Marvel isn't going to be necessarily for everyone, and possibly isn't as impressive as this, although it is pretty cool to watch Miss Marvel as well.
But yeah, so
before we go, I have one small trivia question because you mentioned it earlier. Which came first, Man Thing or Swamp Thing?
Swamp Thing.
It was Man Thing. By 2 months.
So
Man
time when they were also swapping staff between DC and.
I mean, quite possibly. Man Thing debuted in an issue in May 71, and Swamp Thing was in July 71. Actually, if I was clever enough, and in fact, if you vamp, sing a little Halloween song for a minute, I'll see whether any of the creators crossed over.
This is Halloween. This is Halloween. 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 Halloween.
I don't. It doesn't look like any of the creators were the same. However, I do see the term Stan Lee on there, and my thoughts and feelings on him is that he probably would have stolen anything and had spies everywhere. So probably, yeah. So I wouldn't be shocked if it wasn't conceived at DC first, but published in Marvel first.
They jumped it out first, yeah.
But it's something I hadn't looked up until this in preparation for this show. And do you know what? If you'd have asked me beforehand, I'd have said Swamp Thing. I had always assumed that Swamp Thing was a precursor for Man Thing. I thought that was the original character, and Man Thing was based off the bat. Now, having not read those early stories, I don't know how similar they become over time. Yeah. So, you know, that like Swamp Thing might have been swampy and Man Thing might have been not swampy. I don't know. And you know, they kind of zoomed in that direction. But yeah, interesting bit of trivia that I'd have got wrong as well if I hadn't looked it up.
So, as we said, if you are going to enjoy your Halloween tomorrow, after obviously watching our daily reaction music video for Halloween, the final
That's a treat as well, isn't it?
The 8 days,
it's a banger.
8 days of joy.
And there were so many more. Like, but you know, there's always next year, which we might make it the month of Halloween. And it's a bit late now because
such a 31 days of horror films. 31.
well,
days
that's
of
the thing. I was
horror
going to say, yeah, a bit late for it now, but on the Pop Culture Productions Twitter, I've been doing my daily updates because I've been watching a new, and I say a new to me horror movie every day. 31 days of horror movies, and to a large part, a lot of them have been absolute toss. So I think I'd rather have recorded 31 videos of horror related songs because God, songs, even if they're bad, are generally 4.5 minutes, whereas most movies are looking at least an hour 25. So
Yes. But as we said, enjoy all of our content for music for Halloween. Watch Werewolf by Night if you haven't already.
yes,
Get it on. Like, subscribe, ring the bell as we push to the milestones. By this point, we may have 100. If not, help us get to 100.
yeah.
That would be
Tell your
that'd be
friends,
wonderful.
share us.
And as always, comments on there. What you thought
Yeah.
of Werewolf at Night.
Especially if you've watched it, and if you haven't watched it and you do go and watch it, pop back, let us know, because
Yes.
I think it's like we're in a bit of a bubble here, aren't we? As you and me, and we see similar on a lot of things, not everything. And it might be nice to get some other thoughts and feelings on what you thought of the Werewolf by Night special. And God, if you've read the 2 single issues that we had, drop in about that. And we don't do this very often on this channel, but also any ideas for future shows, anything you'd like us to cover, pop it in there, because we're quite keen to please, eager to please, much
Yes.
much like Ted is to Jack.
Yes. So, as always, have a good evening, have a good day, have a good morrow.
Have a good
Enjoy your
Halloween.
sweets. Don't get fat. Don't get murdered out there whilst trick-or-treating.
Oh, and from the film I watched last night, if a man pops a videotape into your trick-or-treating, don't watch it, because it ended really badly for the people who watched it in the movie I watched last night. So definitely don't watch that.
Now I'm trying to think what film that is.
It's called All Hallows Eve. I'd never heard of
I
it before.
fucking love that film.
I thought you
the
might.
Clown.
I was going to say The Clown. I said to Andrew this morning because we're diverting as we always do at the end of these things. I watched it last night and I found The Clown horrifically unsettling. And I don't often get unsettled. I don't like clowns, but horrifically unsettling. I thought it was a great design. I would say the movie had some promise, although quite unfulfilled promise for a lot of it. But I said if this had been marketed different and maybe had a bit more budget and a bit more push, there's a horror icon for you, because I think he looked such a visual look for him.
There is 2 more films. There's Terrifier, and that comes out this year. Terrifier 2, which are all art. Art is yes, I'm all for Art the Clown. Yeah, he's my boy.
Well, maybe something for a discussion on a future podcast, the All Hallows Eve movie, and what may be to come. Maybe when one of the others comes out, we can cover that.
More it is.
Yes.
But until then, goodbye, good evening, good day. Auf Wiedersehen.